Good afternoon. This is a regularly scheduled meeting for the Caldwell Hearing Examiner. Today is August 27th, 2024, and it is 1:30. This is a public hearing, and my name is Sabrina Durchie, and I will be your hearing examiner today. What I can hear is quasi-judicial decisions concerning particular land use applications for the city of Caldwell. During the public hearing process, public oral testimony will be taken from those in attendance and those who have signed up to speak. The sign-up sheet is at the front of the entrance of the room. When you testify, please come to the podium, speak directly into the microphone. Please begin with stating your full name and address. All comments should be addressed to me and should be relevant to the application. Once the public hearing is open, staff will present the staff report. Then the applicant or the applicant's representative will be given 10 minutes to speak. After the applicant, we will allow for the public to have 3 minutes to testify. And finally, the applicant or the applicant's representative will then be permitted a 5-minute rebuttal. After the rebuttal is given, the public hearing will be closed and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed, unless I decide to reopen the case. We request that everyone treats all parties with fairness and respect. Therefore, please be quiet and respectful when someone is presenting. We are also required by Idaho State Code to take written minutes during our public hearings. So please silence your cell phones throughout the duration of the meeting. And thank you. Okay, let's start. As far as the consent calendar, we had one action item is for me to approve our July 23rd, 2024 hearing examiner meeting minutes, which I have signed. So we're good. Thank you. And we do not have any old business. So we will start with our first new business action item. This is case number SUP 24-11, project name Odyssey Homes Duplex, with the property owner, Ivan Costello. He is requesting a special use permit for a duplex in an R1 zone, which is located at 308 Hill Lane. Great. Alex, would you start with the staff report, please?
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. Alex Jones, planner at 205 South 6th Avenue. And as said before, today before you is SUP 2411 for the Odyssey Home Duplex in an R1 zone. So for subject site location, this is located on the southwest corner of Syringa and Hill Lane. This is a 0.2 acre parcel. For conditions surrounding the subject site, there's residential to the north, east, west, and south. The applicant is requesting to build a duplex in the R1 zone. The lot meets all minimum lot size requirements and all setbacks have been met along with parking. Sorry about that. For zoning and land use analysis, this parcel and all the surrounding parcels to the northeast and south and west are R1 low density residential with some R2 to the farther east and some to the farther west. For comprehensive plan analysis, this site and the surrounding sites to the east, south, and west are medium density residential with low density residential to the north. Here is the site plan for the residence. For public hearing notifications, we received letters from the City of Nampa Planning and Zoning Department sharing no concerns and ITD sharing no concerns, and no public notifications were received. Staff recommends if the hearing examiner approves the request that it's subject to the findings in the FCOs. I stand for questions.
Great, thank you, Alex. I do have one question. It might be a question for the applicant, but I noticed there's like a little accessory additional garage. What's the purpose of that?
The applicant can speak more on that one.
Okay.
That is still allowed to be part of this.
So is it considered this accessory use to
Correct.
the duplex? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It could be something as storage for an extra vehicle or maybe
Sure.
rented more, but the applicant can go more detail.
Okay, that sounds great. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative please come up? Please tell me your name and address.
Hello there, my name is Ivan Castillo, Ivan I-V-A-N. Castillo is C-A-S-T-I-L-L-O. And you need my address too?
Yes, please.
2115 West Habitat Street in Nampa, Idaho, 83651.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure that the record shows that I'm not the owner of record.
Okay.
The owner of record is Edgar Escobedo.
Oh, okay.
So Edgar is, you got it? Okay, good. I just want to make sure. And yes, the owner actually, owns a car lot, and, he likes cars, so he has an extra car that he needs to store, so.
Makes sense. Can you tell me a little bit more of the site and what your plans are for the duplexes?
Yes, it's he's an entrepreneur, and he's just starting, so he wants to have a property that, he could do that, and, nowadays they have this house hack to where he could actually just rent the other side as well, once he's living in the property. So that's what his intention is.
Okay, and it'll be under one single ownership?
That is
By
correct.
the current owner, okay.
Uh-huh.
How did the neighborhood meeting go?
Great. I met a lot of good friends, great people, and they were all concerned, and we had to do it twice because of the length of time that had passed by, and,
Okay.
they're great. I mean, they're a really tight community, and I think that, having Edgar there is going to really help them out as well, so.
Did they have any concerns that they presented at the neighborhood meeting?
They did. One of the biggest concerns had to be access to the property. They've been in there for quite some time. It was determined through the highway district that, the entrances for these duplexes, they needed to be in the hillside. That's why you don't have a Syringa address. But
Okay.
all in all, we were able to, share with them all the information, and we also let them know that at the end of the day, it was your guys' decision as to how you guys wanted to handle these ones, so.
Sure, okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me before?
I don't. Again, we were able to convene twice with everybody, the neighbors, and, I think that this is going to just help the area as well, and he does business in Caldwell as well, so I think it's a win-win.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a list? Okay, so now I will open it up for public testimony. It looks like Carla? Or, would you like to testify, please?
I was gonna, what he said is what we've already went through, so everything hasn't changed, so I'm good.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to provide some testimony? Okay. Would the applicant's representative like a rebuttal time, or?
Oh, no, I actually.
You're good, okay.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, so I will close this public hearing, and based on the staff's findings, public testimony, and facts presented to me today, I will approve SUP 24-11. Thank you. Okay, now we're on to our business item number 2. This is Homesteads at Wilson Creek with the property owner, Rental Property Holdings LLC, requesting a planned unit development for a mixed residential housing types consisting of 4 single-family, 119 duplexes, and 3 triplexes. The site is located at 3307 East Eustick Road. Okay, Katie, I think this is yours. You'd like to?
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 205 South 6th Avenue. This is Homesteads at Wilson Creek, application PUD 2403. The project location is 28.07 acre site located north of Eustick Road and south of the Wilson Drain, just a little bit west of Lake Avenue.
Okay.
The site has frontage along Eustick Road, and the applicant is proposing a planned unit development with 251 residential units comprising of a few single-family style units, duplex units, and triplex units. The project site is currently surrounded by single-family residential to the west, commercial and residential to the east, commercial industrial to the north, and undeveloped land to the south. These parcels are annexed into the city in 1998 with the original zoning of R2. The zone has not changed since the original annexation approval, and there was no proposed development at that time, solely just to get city services. And in 2023, Silver Meadows was approved for this site by City Council to allow for 251 residential units, which is the same number of units this project is proposing. That development was comprised of single-family homes and multifamily development. There was also a commercial clubhouse in the Silver Meadows development as well. Tonight's proposed development is again zoned R2, which is medium-density residential, and that zone is to provide areas by zoning procedures in accordance with the comprehensive plan that provides medium-density residential development areas at a density consistent with the comprehensive plan. Such zones are primarily located in older neighborhoods and adjacent to shopping, recreational, and cultural facilities. Such zones should be placed in areas that have a full range of urban services available or projected to be established. And the proposed development is surrounded by service commercial to the north, medium-density residential to the south and to the west, and service commercial and county to the east. Staff finds the R2 zone is compatible zoning district next to other medium-density residential, and the commercial zoning on the opposite side of the Wilson Creek Drain. The comp plan designation is medium-density residential and is consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan, and the proposed densities are in compliance with the comprehensive plan. The proposed land use for single-family and duplexes are allowed uses. The triplexes are specially permitted use within the R2 zone, which is well under the 30% allowed specially permitted and non-permitted uses within the planned unit development code. The applicant is proposing a development consisting of 4 single-family detached units, 238 duplex units, and 9 triplex units. The proposed development project has been analyzed for compliance with city codes and policies, and staff finds the proposed development is in compliance with all parking and landscaping requirements, all bulk standards for lot size and setbacks, frontage, and height of buildings. The proposed planned unit development is in compliance with all size, land use, design, and amenity requirements. The proposed development will have adequate site access, utilities, and services. And the proposed development is in compliance with all other zoning and planned unit development ordinances. Due to the application being a planned unit development, this does allow for the request for flexibilities with the city code requirements. And the applicant is requesting the following: a reduced landscape buffer along the public pathway from 10 feet on each side to 2 feet on one side due to the Wilson Creek Drain easement, as well as the western land use buffer that they're providing. And they're also requesting a 6-foot open fence on one side of the pathway, being the internal side, rather than the fence on both sides, also due to that easement and the space that they're moving over to the west side for more of a land use buffer. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. There was a late letter submitted by Caldwell School District commenting on overall support for the project, with requests to consider walking and biking routes as well as bus stop plans. And staff received 2 public comments, both written by David and Patricia Henderson. These letters were in opposition due to lowering surrounding property values and side effects from construction. The following conditions are specific to this proposal. At time of construction drawings, the applicant shall include a note and details specifying guardrails along the bridge leading to 41st Avenue. At the time of final landscaping inspection, wayfinding and directional signage compliant with MUTCD requirements shall be installed along the public pathway along the Wilson Creek Drain, as well as all other required landscaping as required by Caldwell City Code and the 2040 Bike and Pedestrian Plan. If the irrigation district will not allow certain plantings, a letter from the district will be required and all plantings shall be relocated to another location within the development. Prior to building permit submittal, the applicant shall record a public access easement over the public pathway along the Wilson Creek Drain. Prior to approval of the construction drawings, parcels R35829 and R35825 shall be consolidated through a lot line adjustment application. All buildings shall be sprinklered. At time of final landscape inspection, adequate trees and shrub counts along the major and micro pathways shall be installed. At the time of the final landscape inspection, parking lot island ground cover material shall comply with the City of Caldwell Code Section 100709. All berming on street landscape buffers shall be outside of the vision triangle, and this application does not grant approval of signage. Staff recommends that if the examiner recommends approval for the request, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. And I stand for any questions.
Great. Thank you, Katie. So I do remember this project a few years ago at Willow Creek. And for some reason, I felt like that road connection to 41st was being provided. Now it's just a pedestrian pathway?
Madam Hearing Examiner, to my understanding, it will be the size of a private drive used for secondary access, but I will let the applicant touch on that just a little bit more because I know there was a little bit of conversation between engineering and the applicant about that.
Because that's my follow-up question. What's the stance the engineering department has on it?
Yeah, so I know they came to a compromise about that, about what they would require for width and things like that.
Okay.
They did want to make sure that there'd be those guardrails, so that's kind of where we came in with that condition as well, because engineering did show a concern with that, especially with the proposed bus stop being on the north of the drain.
Correct.
So I know that was a big conversation, so the applicant should have some information.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we received a late exhibit from the Caldwell School District that was given to the applicant. Okay, great. Okay, I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Would the applicant or applicant's representative like to come up, please?
Good afternoon, Madam Hearing Examiner. My name is Bonnie Layton. I'm with NV5, representing Dominion Partners. My address is 690 South Industry Way, Suite 10, Meridian, Idaho, 83642.
Great, thank you.
And first of all, I want to thank you for your time this afternoon, as well as staff. They've been great to work with, as always. And I'm here this afternoon to request your approval or recommendation of approval for our proposed PUD. As Katie mentioned, it's approximately 28 acres with 251 dwelling units, a clubhouse, and related amenities. And let's see, which, and then is it just the side one? Okay.
It's a little touchy.
Pardon me?
As you noticed, it's a little touchy.
It was a PDF, yeah. The PowerPoint was too large to send. There we go.
Tell me when you want me to scroll through.
Oh, because it won't click through?
Actually, go ahead and try it.
There we go. I won't spend too much time on this. Katie did a great job. As she mentioned, the future land use map designation for this is medium-density residential. We are adjacent to East Ustick Road, which is on our southern boundary. We are west of Lake Street and east of Florida. Each of those intersections with Ustick have full roundabouts, I believe, at this point. As Katie mentioned, this was previously annexed into the city. It was under a different project. You did receive a couple of letters from the neighbors. I think there's some confusion. I held a neighborhood meeting. There was nobody that attended that one. So I think that there may be some confusion with the previous neighborhood meetings, and I just wanted to address that in the letter. I held it at the library as usual, and nobody attended. And that is part of the record. So just wanted to clear that up quickly. So the PUD that we are requesting is still consistent. It's R2 zoning. And we're, as Katie mentioned, we're not changing the number of units. We are requesting a PUD with 251 dwelling units. I should note that the allowable dwelling unit density for this, for a PUD in this zone is 12 dwelling units per acre, and so we are well within that range at 8.94 dwelling units per acre. So next one. Just in terms of a vicinity map, whoops. There we go. Due north of our site is both North Ranch and Sky Ranch business parks. We think this is a really important feature for the location of this. There's quick, easy access to the boulevard, and then also over to I-84, and not too far away, not too far of a commute, to a major employment center within the community. Also, we have the local colleges are close by, so again, very easy access for folks getting around town, living in this part of the city. We also have Walmart and multiple services along the boulevard, making this a very attractive location for a residential development. That said, we do have, oops. Okay, it's acting up. So that said, as Katie mentioned, we have some commercial and light industrial uses to our north, which is on the left-hand side of the screen. And then to our east, we've got the Wilson Drain, and then there's some more commercial uses. To the south is Solstice Subdivision, which our entrance on Ustick aligns with that entrance. There's a church property adjacent to our southwest corner, and then there are two subdivisions that were platted years ago. We have a couple of constraints with this project, the Wilson Drain being one of them, and then the fact that, and this is typical in some of the older areas of town, the subdivisions to the west were not required to stub streets for access points, and so that constrains our site. We've dealt with that on a few different projects. So that created some unique challenges, but we believe that the plan that we've developed has really mitigated that. In speaking to your question about the crossing connection onto 41st Avenue, the project that we are proposing is different than the previous one in that the previous one had public roadways throughout the development, where what we are proposing are private drive aisles. And so we worked with the engineering department and planning staff to make that connection on the north end of our site be more of a private drive that's accessible. It's not meant to be a private street that people would cut through the development, as these are private drive aisles throughout the site. On that northern end, we have also a bus shelter, which we have a slide of, and the plan would be for the school children to cross the bridge that's crossing the Wilson Drain to be picked up on the other side of the drain at 41st. So we believe this is an ideal location for an affordable rental community because it provides a good transition from some of those more intense commercial and light industrial uses into a residential development, but not quite the same as what you would see in a traditional subdivision. As I mentioned, the eastern boundary has the Wilson Drain, and I mentioned who our other neighbors are. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So the main entrance would be off of East Ustick Road. Of course, we're required to do the full gamut of frontage improvements for that. And then also with buffers, detached sidewalk, and a turn lane that'll come into the site. So there will be a right-hand turn lane as you're heading west to the project. We have also planned, part of the reason that we had requested a variance for the landscaping along the Wilson Drain is so that we could provide an additional 5 feet of buffer along our western boundary, additional landscape buffer to help buffer our project from the neighbors to the west. We also were very intentional about where we placed the drive aisle and the homes, and then also the types of homes, really trying to provide as much distance as possible from our homes to those of our neighbors. Let's see, which along our western boundary, and they're kind of the peach-colored ones, it's hard to see in this slide, but facing that western drive aisle, we have single-story homes, and again, that was a very intentional decision so that the neighbors wouldn't feel like we've got these two-story homes looking into their backyards. So again, enhanced landscape buffer, drive aisle, parking, and single-story homes along that boundary. Let's see. And then, as Katie mentioned, we have a mix of home types and sizes. So we have some singles, and this is a little bit better image where you can see the peach-colored units along the bottom of the screen here are where the singles are. We have some enhanced elevations that we've done at the entrance, and that's indicated with the green lines that you can see at the entrance and as you come into the site. So as you're driving past the site, we were really conscious that we want to make sure that that there is a sense of quality and appearance from the community as you're entering into the site, and really trying to develop residential elevations that are consistent with what the community, the surrounding community is. So very traditional architecture, kind of farmhouse style elevations. Oops. These are just a few renderings of what those will look like. So we have a variety of materials and colors, and obviously adding dimension and articulation to the elevations, really as any other residential community would have. This is a site plan, or floor plan, pardon me, of our clubhouse, and with the amenities that are in there, the map on the side showing where that's located. And I don't know if that was a bell, that was my time. We have a variety of unit types, just to show, I've included them all in this presentation. So there's some single stories, there's 2 stories, various plan types, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So really trying to attract a wide variety of residents to this community. So whether you're a single, or maybe you're a widower or retired and living alone, all the way up to families living here. So really trying to make sure that this is a very inclusive community. These are the building plans and how they would lay out, and we have provided you with the counts of what those units are throughout the community. And again, here are some color elevations of what those would look like. Again, articulating the roof, trying to provide some variety, being sensitive to where the windows are, how we're placing the buildings. Oops, and I think I missed one. Again, different color palettes. Oops. Just again, to break up the elevations, this is our townhome. So this is a 3-unit building. We only have 3 of those buildings throughout the site, and we replaced them strategically to minimize any sort of perceived impact with the neighbors. And again, we've got the bus shelter, as I mentioned, that would be on the north site. Again, we worked with engineering to understand what the design requirements would be for the connection over to 34th. The Wilson Drain is a pretty substantial crossing that really impacts the budget, quite frankly, of this project. It's a pretty significant undertaking to do that. So we've worked with engineering to see what can we do, what would comply with fire, and then, of course, the handrails. So other than that, we are in agreement with the staff report. We have a couple of minor items. One of them is, as Katie had read the conditions of approval, and I spoke with her about this earlier, condition number 3 reads prior to building permit submittal. And due to the nature of the way that my client funds this project and when that funding is released, we would prefer that to read prior to issuance of building permits, that we would have to record the public access easement. So we're working all towards the same goal. We can't actually pick up those permits to start going vertical until we pay the fee, and then, of course, until this easement is recorded. So that's one clarification that was kind of a late one that Katie and I discussed earlier today. And then the other one that we're still trying to work through with staff, and we would request that it would be a condition to have potentially either something resolved or something that we could discuss with the city council should we be successful in your recommendation, is we've got a requirement by the engineering department for some improvements to what they're defining as an out parcel. It's actually a parcel that's to the east of our property, across the Wilson Drain. It's on the north side of East Eustick Road, coming in. Let me see if I can maybe get back to a site plan. Basically, the roundabout was built. There's some challenges with frontage improvements there, and we have been working with staff on that. We heard late Friday afternoon we had some late correspondence, and so we would just ask that a condition would be modified to say that we need to work through that some more with staff or with the council potentially on what that requirement may be for that out parcel. And that's contained in the, excuse me, in the engineering memo that's in your packet. If I can find it. It's hard to see. I don't quite have it in my images, I apologize. So it's hard to see what I'm talking about, but right now the city is under construction. At East Eustick Road, they're putting in a larger culvert for that drain. But the improvements along the southern boundary were completed, but the parcel adjacent to that was left out. And so we would just like an additional opportunity to work through that with staff prior to going to the city council. And that's everything. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. I do have quite a few questions, so hold tight. So my first question is, in your narrative, you discuss a build-to-rent. Can you explain that in more detail to me, please?
Yes, Madam Hearing Examiner. So we use that term, build-to-rent. This is a rental community as opposed to a 3-story walk-up type product. What we're providing are 1- and 2-story residential units. So people aren't climbing stairs outside of their unit. It's a common term that has been developed over the last few years. We recently, NV5 did another project that was a build for rent in the city of Caldwell. So really what it means is single-story or two-story living in your own unit, either detached or attached, usually by one wall or a townhome, but nobody living above or below you. Excuse me.
Thank you for explaining that. My next question, I don't know, your landscape plan was pretty busy, and I couldn't really determine where all the amenities were located at. Can you go through your site plan and highlight each area and the amenities locations?
Yes, I can do that. So let's see if I get to this. Maybe the next one. This is a pretty good open space exhibit without a bunch of extra stuff on it, I guess. So our clubhouse is in the purple. It's the leasing office, it's the clubhouse. So right up front when you come in, nice welcoming amenity, place for everyone to gather. And then what we did is we were really thoughtful of trying to provide, not only do we have the regional pathway along the Wilson Drain, which will be an amenity not only to our residents, but to the greater residents of the city of Caldwell. But we also have pathways looping through the interior portion of the site. And on either side of those, we have large open spaces for amenities like a tot lot, a dog area, dog park area. And then, let's see. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we've got the bus shelter, which is, I wish I had a pointer, but it's connecting kind of where 41st Ave connects in.
Okay.
So really tried to disperse the open space areas throughout. One thing that's also unique about this type of product is that everyone will have their own private backyard space where they'll have a dog, it's fenced in, and that's also what really makes it a different type of amenity. It's not included in the open space calculations per Caldwell City Code, but is definitely a benefit, better than maybe a balcony on a standard three-story walk-up. But so really trying to disperse the open spaces throughout, make them central for everybody to enjoy.
So 41st Street, I guess, can you show me, I don't know if we can go up, where the area for the kids, the pickup, the covered shelter is going to be at?
Yes, so let's see. Click through that one pretty quickly. It's highlighted on my second to last slide. There you
Okay.
go. So the purple up there in the corner.
Okay.
It's pretty faint, but it's just a little shelter. It's adjacent to the drive aisle, and the intent would be that the children would wait there, and then as the bus came, they would walk across the bridge to get on the bus.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then, since we're in that area, let's discuss your dialogue with the engineering department
Yep.
and how it changed from the road. I understand that they're private drive aisles, but that connectivity, I would think, would be really important to the city. So can you kind of explain what was discussed and how it came to this?
Yes, so as I mentioned, this is a pretty significant crossing, and in terms of the infrastructure needed to cross the Wilson Drain. And because we are not providing public streets through this community, we asked both fire and engineering what would be the minimum standard that they would allow. We also don't want to make it seem like it's a public street that people would come in and then they're driving through this development trying to find their way to a different route. So it provides some safety if it's a narrower section that looks more like it's a private drive instead of a full public street. They were on board with that. Of course, we have to meet the fire department's requirements for the weight support of their fire engine, should they need to come in to the site, but it wasn't it wasn't a sticky issue for either fire or for engineering, really. It was just, this is what we want to do. Yes, that makes sense, because it's private drive aisles inside instead of
Okay.
public streets.
And it'll be 20 feet in width and.
Yeah,
you know,
there's, yeah, we made.
Fire building code standards.
Yes, that's correct.
Since it is a crossing, you mentioned Bureau of Rec, Pioneer Irrigation. Have you been in contact with those agencies? And have we received anything from Pioneer? This seems like something they should have commented on.
So we have been working closely with both of those agencies. It's actually been a pretty extensive exercise because there wasn't a lot of flood data related to that, so we've actually had to do a whole bunch of steps above that to really understand and model what would be required there. So our engineers at NV5 have been working closely with Pioneer, with Bureau of Rec, and with the city to understand what that design will ultimately be.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
404 permit, I'm assuming?
Yeah, where we understand, so our client is anxious to get moving on this should we gain approval, and just giving the timing of year and whatnot. We've had a lot of forward conversations that would maybe in other projects or other timing would be delayed, but because we understand the lead times on some of these agency responses, we've been working closely with them.
I guess that's a question for Katie. So they clearly are going to need to deal with the Corps and have a 404 permit, which takes time. Is that something that you guys are going to require for them to do before they submit construction plans?
Madam Hearing Examiner, that would probably fall more on if engineering were to require that. If you would want to make a sort of condition to require something like that, that could be something you could do.
Where is the engineering department?
I am not sure. I was messaging Morgan to see if they were coming, but I have
Okay.
not heard anything.
Okay.
When I talked with them last week, they did say they'd be here, so.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Hearing Examiner, obviously we will need permits to be able to do any construction
Okay.
in there. And so, our goal would be to submit our plans for approval, and that would be part of the package.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the previous PUD application, there was a clubhouse, and that clubhouse was open to the public for public use, to rent. In your narrative, you reference community rooms. So I guess my question is it going to be the same setup as the previous PUD application? And then I noticed there was an office in the clubhouse. Will there be full-time staff working on site, I mean? So that's the questions I have on the clubhouse.
Yes, so I did see that in the previous application. We are not proposing that it's open to the public per se, but it is obviously available to our residents. We'll have a leasing office in there. This community will be professionally managed with staff on site,
Okay.
just the nature of this development, and similar to what our client does in other
Okay.
projects around the country.
Thank you, Bonnie. Katie, is that something that we need to have part as the PUD, that they're going to have staff on site and working hours, or is that?
Madam Hearing Examiner, that isn't something that we technically would
Okay.
require.
Okay.
Again, unless that were something that you
Okay.
would think
No, that's
would
fine, because
be
usually
added.
some conditional use permits, we have to list that, so that's fine. So let's talk next, Bonnie, about your alternative compliances that you're requesting. Is there just one that you're requesting, or are there multiple ones?
Madam Hearing Examiner, we have two that we are requesting. One of those is the fencing for the units along the Wilson Drain. So typically, the fencing is required to be open there. We are only fencing the backyard of the unit, and then the next building over, there isn't a fence there. So it's not a solid line fence. However, we would like to have a solid fence at the back of those units for privacy and also for the look. So as you're walking along, these are units that people might have stuff that you don't necessarily want to see from there. So that's why we just want to have some privacy and make it a nice, clean appearance. So that's the reason for that request.
And then what about the fencing along the drain? So I think in Katie's staff report, you're saying that the Pioneer Irrigation did not want the fencing, which I find interesting because they typically do.
So let's see, which conditioner? Oh, where is that one? Katie, can you point me to that? I'm sorry, I can't. Oh, here we go.
The specific condition,
Yeah.
I don't believe there was a condition calling it out, but I do mention it just in the request for flexibility, as fencing typically is required on both sides of the public
yes.
pathways, either being 6 foot open or 4 foot solid. And they're providing an internal 6 foot open style fence and then not one on the other side.
So again, just looking at the specific site and the way that we are developing the units, as I mentioned, it's not a solid fence all the way along. We also wanted to be sensitive to the neighbors and add as much buffer on the western side. And so typical with this drain as well as other drains in the area, the pathway will, what we're showing,
Do you have a cross-section of it maybe that can,
I don't unfortunately have a cross-section. See if I can get. Let's see, well, I don't know if that's the best one. Let's see. So you can see it on that western boundary in this diagram. So we've got fences, as I mentioned, that back the units, but they're not solid all the way connecting from one backyard to the other. And then just trying to provide enough landscaping on either side, but again, trying to provide that buffer, a larger buffer. 10 foot would be the required. We're showing a minimum of 16 feet on the western boundary.
Okay.
So
how wide is the easement that Pioneer has right there? From center line of the canal to the edge of your property?
It's a 50-foot easement.
A 50-foot easement?
Yeah.
And within that easement, are you guys going to be providing any of the pathway, any landscaping within that? Yes.
Yes, yeah.
How
So-
far are you going to be encroaching in the easement?
So we believe that we can fit most of it. There will be some areas that we will encroach. And again, until we get into the design of it, the way the drains are maintained, there's often a lot of spoils. So once we go out and grade that out, we'll finalize that through our construction document phase. So we think we are erring on the side of caution when we're requesting this variance. In some areas, it'll be pinched down, but really, generally, we believe that we can comply with what the standard code is, but we wanted a little bit of latitude there.
And you think you'll shrink down to 2 feet in some areas?
In a couple of pinch points, yes, and again.
Like on the corners or?
Not necessarily on the corners, probably kind of where we make that bend would be the biggest one.
Okay.
It's just, the drain isn't in a straight line, but then again, when you look at the topography and the spoils that have been dug out over the years, there's some varying width in there. So we'll flush that out during our construction document phase.
Okay, so my next question, my next question is concerning the neighbors. So let's talk about
Okay.
the neighborhood meeting.
Yep.
And if you could speak on behalf of some of the letters that the neighbors wrote in. There was a few talking about a meeting that didn't occur or occurred. I know you spoke about it briefly,
Yes.
but can we get more information on that, please?
Yep. So I held a neighborhood meeting earlier this year, as I do with every application, and sent out letters to the required mailing radius. Nobody attended that meeting, so I'm not sure who these folks are referencing in terms of a meeting. I have not received any phone calls, nor did I receive any emails regarding my letter. And so my only guess is that they are confused with maybe the previous application because of some of the statements that are made in here. Clearly, the plan that we brought forward has not changed drastically since the time I had the neighborhood meeting. So I wouldn't have said some of these things that are in the letter, like that there would be a change of proposed townhouses to duplexes. First, we were told they'd be houses. Yeah, this is, again, it reads to me that this is a different meeting. And again, nobody attended my meeting, so.
Okay.
And I've had no phone calls or emails.
Okay. So let's speak about the site, the residential that's directly south of your site. How much landscape buffer is there between the property, the edge of their property, and how much of that drive aisle? I want to know the distance between their home and your proposed homes.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I did some measurements earlier today.
Okay.
Building to building, worst case scenario is, from what I could tell, I mean, it's not an exact, but looking at our drawings, it was about 150 feet, or 140 feet, pardon me, from the back of the neighbor's house to the face of ours. So,
Okay.
And you will see that in the worst condition, the closest homes, let's see if I can get there. So the closest homes happen to be in that cul-de-sac there that you can kind of see in the center, right up here. So those homes were the closest.
Okay.
And that's where we even widened the buffer out even more,
Okay.
so that there's as much opportunity for landscape as possible. So those two homes, I would say, kind of in the corner of that cul-de-sac, are in closest proximity. Again, per code, it's a 10-foot landscape buffer that's required. We provided at least a minimum of 16 feet.
Okay.
And you'll see that in the northern corner as well. We have a significant green area at that northern tip, or on the west side of this drawing,
Okay.
just to really try to be mindful of
Sure.
the neighbors.
And let's talk about the closest buildings to them. Are
Yes.
those one story? Or you talked about how you guys were sensitive in the design and trying to keep the neighbors' privacy. Can you expand on that a little bit more for me?
Yes. So I'll flip to a different slide here. So what you can see from the legend up above on this site plan diagram, so everything that's sort of orange and salmon color, those are all one-story homes. And that's all adjacent to the single-family residential. When we get over to our southwest corner, that actually is adjacent to the church property. And then we do have a couple of, we've got one two-story building up in the northern portion, but we felt with that abundant open space behind that, that also helped to provide a healthy buffer so that we were even, so that they didn't feel like we were staring into their backyard, and the units are angled in a way that they're looking onto the open space and not into a backyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. The neighbors did express some concern concerning the construction and dust and debris. I know the city of Caldwell has specific standards. What are the standards? I know there's a time they can start, they have to be done. We have SWIFT, so that things have to be, dirt can't be carried out of sight. Can you just, for the record, really briefly explain that?
Madam Hearing Examiner, off the top of my head, I don't have every single
Yeah, that's fine.
exact
That's fine, Katie.
one down, but it is conditioned in all of our order of decisions. It's one of our kind of boilerplate conditions that we do make sure that those people are following all of those rules. If there are concerns, there is someone in Public Works that does go out and make the rounds and make sure that they're, using their water trucks and all of those types of things. So if there is an issue in the future, there is someone who can go check up on those issues.
Okay, they would just have to contact Public Works?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Bonnie, we received a letter from the Caldwell School District that you said you received, and they talk about the bus stop and that it's likely outside the property line of this development. So, is it outside of the property line?
So that is correct. Where the bus would actually stop to pick up the children would be on the north side of the Wilson Drain. So
Okay.
the shelter is within our development, but then they would be picked up. The bus didn't want to come into
Okay.
the site, so that's where we worked out a plan that they would shelter on our side. The bus would pull up to the side of the road next to the drain. They'd cross and
Okay, but your facility, what you're building, is going to be on your site. You're not going to need an easement for another
correct.
location?
You are correct. It's
Okay.
on our site.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Katie, what condition did we have on that? Oh, we were going to add it to condition number 1?
Madam Hearing Examiner, yeah, you could add something along the lines of, at time of final landscape inspection, the applicant shall provide a covered bus stop for the Caldwell School District on the south side of the Wilson Creek Drain to service the bus stop along 41st Avenue and Everett Street.
Okay.
Or something like that.
And-
You could make that a separate condition.
Okay, I think we should, just so
okay.
that the school district knows that we're listening.
Yeah.
And we heard their concerns.
And we would be fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, I have a question. Does this require a DA modification at all? And if so, is that going to be heard at council?
Madam Hearing Examiner, no, it does not. There's not a DA
Existing?
with this property.
Okay. And the TIS that was originally submitted a couple years ago, that's still current, and those conditions will still be met as far as the recommendations?
Madam Hearing Examiner, there was a TIS statement included with their application that just gives a little bit of updated information, but otherwise I believe the engineering found that the TIS from Silver Meadows would still reflect accurate information.
Yeah, Madam Hearing Examiner, if I may, we did do somewhat of an update to it. We worked with the engineering staff. They've reviewed it. So we took what the previous application had done, did sort of a reevaluation of it, submitted it, and it was accepted by the engineering department.
Okay, great. Now, let's talk about the out parcel. I would like more information on this, like, where is it? Can we bring up Google Earth or something so we can see a little bit better?
Could you bring up that map? Thank you. Marlon has actually the map pulled up,
Great.
so we'll be able to
Thank
look
you.
at that.
So Madam Hearing Examiner, if I may, it's being defined as an out parcel, but it's actually, typically an out parcel is surrounded by the project maybe on either side. This is off-site. So it's an off-site parcel that's adjacent to the Wilson Drain on the eastern side. And so there have been improvements. Can you zoom in a little bit more, please?
Is it the one right next to the roundabout?
It is. Can you pan?
Down just a little,
Yeah,
south,
I need
yeah.
to see you stick. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
So it's this parcel here. If you move your arrow, maybe, I can't reach that. I think it says 3521. It's got the little blue square. There you go. No, up. There you go. So that is the parcel that we're trying to work through, what improvements could be made there. So, as I mentioned, we received some late word on Friday, and we're just asking at this time that that we're still evaluating what that condition is. We've gone a little bit back and forth with engineering department and the logistics of how that improvement would be made. It was left out of the city's recent plans for the crossing at the Wilson Drain. There's sidewalk on the south side that's being installed, I believe, as part of those plans. But unfortunately, we're concerned that there are going to be some impacts to the trees that that neighbor has, and so a requirement like that could be extraordinary on our project. So we want a little bit more dialogue with staff as a condition of approval, that we would be able to work that out and discuss that with staff in the interim or with council.
Okay.
So,
Right now, it looks like some improvements have been done. There's some sidewalks, like almost the majority of the site, and then where the Wilson Drain is, they're wanting you to continue the sidewalk to your site.
that is correct. And there's a power pole with a pretty large transformer. There's an irrigation box that's in the path of where the sidewalk would be. And then there's the neighbor's trees. And so trying to develop a plan that we've got the regional pathway along our eastern boundary that could cross U-Stick, and for sidewalks to get to Walmart, for example, our residents and other residents in the area could use the sidewalk that's already developed on the south side
Okay.
of U-Stick to get over there. And it's a pretty sticky situation, especially on a parcel that we don't own. And
Do you know if they have the acquired right-of-way?
That's part of what we need to better understand with engineering. I'm not sure if all of the right-of-way has been acquired. And as I mentioned, there's an estimation of a cost that would be involved with that in working with staff, and we just need to, we need a little bit more time to see, is that really what that would cost, or is it 2 or 3 times that? And then, does that make sense for the project?
Okay.
So we're just trying to work through that one thing. We had requested some information, and we've received construction plans, but that would be something that, I think a modified condition of approval for us before we go before city council would be appropriate.
Okay. Katie, so we just leave everything as is, and they can ask for reconsideration during council if they can't come to some other agreement?
Madam Hearing Examiner, I know that there was a meeting with our attorney and some other staff members. I was unable to make it, and I know engineering was involved in that as well. And I believe this is what Bonnie's talking about, that got to them late. The information, I think, was given to them late on Friday.
Okay.
But the attorney says that does not look like it's a taking or anything along those lines, that it wouldn't be unfair to ask for that. Apparently, it also was said that it wouldn't cost too much proportionally, around $50,000, and it was also conditioned for Silver Meadows and accepted by that approval.
Okay. Okay. I think we'll just leave it, and then you can discuss that at council. So I'm just a recommending body. There'll be another hearing, and I really feel like we need to push Pioneer Irrigation to respond, because there's several things that need to be, they're going to be encroaching in the easement, they're going to be doing a crossing. I know they're busy, but and they're close to the site, so they can respond to it. So make sure that if you can get a letter from them before council. Is there anything else, Bonnie? I know you've been here a while, so.
No, and I apologize, we have had several meetings with Pioneer Irrigation District, so we'll provide more clarity for that at the hearing as well.
Madam Hearing Examiner, did you want that to be conditioned, that they would need to provide some feedback to staff
Yeah.
prior to city council?
Yes.
Okay,
Maybe that'll push them to respond. Okay. Anything else, Bonnie?
no.
Okay. Now I will open for public testimony. Stan Saran, please come up and speak. Name and address, and can we get, maybe kind of bring down the site plan so Stan can show me where he lives?
My shop.
What's that?
That's my shop.
Your shop? Okay. Oh, first, name and address, Stan.
Okay. My name's Stan Saran. The address is 4215 Everett Street
Okay?
or Road.
You want this map south?
Yeah, a little south more. Can you see your property?
Go the other way.
Go up.
You want north?
Yeah, north, please. Thank you.
There you go. Keep going. And then I'm short, so.
It's okay, Stan. Okay,
Just around the bend there, my old brother's shop is next to mine.
Okay.
That's where the bend is, and
Uh-huh.
mine's next to that.
okay, thank you.
Anyway, I'd called down to the city a couple of times trying to get a yes or no answer whether whether they're going to pave the Everett Street or, and I'd heard they're going to bridge the canal, but it looks like it's going to be just a walkway, not a drive-over
Yeah.
bridge.
Well, it sounds like, so it's going to be used for two purposes, a walkway and emergency services. So it's going to be wide enough and it's going to be able to hold a fire truck if there's a fire, because they only have one access to their site.
Right.
So that'll give them a secondary access. But it looks like, I don't know if there's going to be bollards or something prohibiting people from driving. We'll have to ask the applicant.
That's kind of what I would like to find out.
Yes,
If
okay.
there's a restriction to that, and if the first person I talked to said there was no plan to pave Everett Street, and then somebody was coming out and they were scoping out the territory to see with the intent that it was going to get paved. And speaking for the other two business owners that front on Everett, besides myself, nobody wants that. Nobody wants any pavement because
Drive.
because the
Full
people that
full road.
drive
Okay.
by there now use it as a speedway. So.
Yeah. Understand. Okay.
And that's, as far as the bridge part of it goes, I realize they gotta have some access to it, but if it's a small, especially if there's some restriction to where doesn't get used as a daily, a route out to the
Sure.
boulevard to go to work or something, that would
Okay.
be.
All right, we'll have the
important.
applicant come up and respond to that question during her rebuttal.
Okay,
Does that work?
that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Stan. David Henderson? Oh, I believe, would you please come up? Name and address?
David Henderson, 3813 Duluth Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho, 83605.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for letting me speak today. My main concern about this development is that will affect my property value, as I think most of the residents along that side do. We went to the first meeting, which was held at the library, and we were shown another plan that had more housing in it, and it didn't have any duplexes in it whatsoever. The second meeting, the address that we were given for the meeting was the address of the site. And we were at the site, but nobody showed up.
Okay.
I don't understand why they had it at the site. Maybe it was to display something, I don't know, but it was awful hot.
Oh, I bet.
Of course, with the, we weren't aware of how many duplexes were going in this place, and we are concerned that this type of community would lower our property values. I appreciate the concern about giving us a buffer, putting a street right there, but then again, you have, our bedroom rental is right by the street, so that would, we would hear the traffic, I'm sure. But then again, our main concern is our property value.
Okay. So let's talk about the neighborhood meeting.
Okay,
So when did these meetings occur?
the first one, I don't have the dates. I'm
Was it this
sorry.
year?
I believe it was last year,
Okay.
was the first meeting. We met with the lady from Utah. And there was also a gentleman there on the south side of Eustic, which is now being developed. He was the owner of it and has been trying to get it developed for some time. But he was there, and me and my wife.
Okay.
And this is with another lady that I haven't seen since. But she seems to be, I believe, a partner of the LLC.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I believe. Second meeting, we did get a notice, but the meeting place address they gave us was the site address. We went there, but no one else showed up.
Okay. So, Katie, when was the other PUD approved? Was it last summer?
The other one was approved in 2023.
Okay.
There is a neighborhood meeting that was on July 28th, 2022, with an Amy Johnson of Utah.
That's probably the meeting.
And
So
it
you're-
was at the property site.
Okay.
So that was for Silver Meadows. So that was a different development.
So last year, they came in with the single-family, multifamily apartments, and I believe townhomes, duplexes?
I believe there was townhouses that lined up along the front of Eustic,
Yes.
and the rest of it was housing.
Yes. So I think that's the neighborhood meeting that you're referencing, was the old project. So now there's a new owner that's redesigned it,
Right.
for whatever reason, and she had another neighborhood meeting at the library. I'm assuming we provided the printout of the radius and the neighbors' addresses? Okay, so I'm not sure why you didn't get noticed on that one. Well, I apologize.
I don't know either, there was some confusion about
Okay.
time and meeting and place. so
Yes, because, sound like,
We've been uninformed and
Oh.
coming up from behind here.
yeah, I apologize. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
And as far as property values, so I really don't have a say over property values. What I look at is strictly the zoning code. What's allowed in the code, what's not allowed. And as far as property values, that'd be something that you would need to talk to city council about.
Okay.
That's way out of my purview. So, after this hearing, there will be another hearing. The site will be posted, you will get noticed, and it will be with city council, with the mayor and city council.
Okay.
And you can discuss your concerns as far as your property values.
Okay.
On that. So
Okay.
I just wanted to be open and let you know that I can only look at code. So,
Okay,
yeah, take
okay.
that in consideration.
Well, this was the first meeting I.
Yeah, no, you did great. No, and thank you for writing your letter. You might want to update it, just since
Yes.
there was confusion over,
I'll write another one.
yeah, I would update it and for council, so.
I will.
Do you have anything else, other concerns that maybe I can help answer?
Well, besides the construction,
Yes,
that they keep the
Okay.
dust down,
I know,
noise down,
yes,
only
yes.
constructing during daylight hours.
Yes, I agree. And so, and if they, if this project proceeds and construction happens and they are violating those, you just call the city Public Works Department.
Okay.
And they will have people out and they're stopping them immediately.
Okay.
And they do not like to stop construction, so they will
I can understand
mind
that.
their Ps and Qs. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Bonnie, would you like to come up for your rebuttal?
Thank you, Madam Hearing Examiner, and I just want to say thank you to the neighbors who have showed up to testify. I understand, I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes the process is a little confusing. I appreciate that you took the time to try to clear that up. Certainly, I did not attend any on-site meeting. The one that I had scheduled, just for the record, was back in February of this year at the library. So that would be the difference. Sounds like that's where the confusion is. You know, generally speaking, though, we believe we've brought forward a plan that provides residential units that are greatly needed here in the city of Caldwell. We believe that this project provides a really nice transition from the surrounding as we go to kind of more intense commercial and light industrial uses to a multifamily that doesn't really feel like a multifamily in terms of the scale of the structures, that they are really residential feeling, 1- and 2-story homes, and then transitioning into more of your standard traditional subdivision. So with that,
Oh, Bonnie, before you, can you talk to us about Stan, about the drive aisle? Or walk a little bit more in detail, please?
Yes. So to address the drive aisle, it's our intention to make that as a private drive for the residents would be able to access that as well. But it would be signed that it's a private entrance. So again, the reduced, it would look like a driveway, like you would be going into any other sort of whether it's an apartment complex or a commercial development that has a driveway approach into it. This just happens to be that we have to cross the Wilson Drain. So it would be a second access point. The 41st Avenue is paved from the boulevard down to this corner and a little bit around. So in looking at, I drove out there several times, in looking at how people would exit this site, they would either exit onto Ustick or potentially go up north through the site and take that straight shot up to the boulevard and then turn left or right from there, depending on what direction they're going. So that is the intent of that, but it's not a public street to cut through from 41st all the way, or from the boulevard all the way to Ustick.
Okay. And it'll be marked private drive?
It would be, yes, it would be signed. It would be very clear identity that this is, you're entering a community, just like you would any other development like this, if it were in a different location. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. I hope that answers your question, sir. Okay. And with that, I just, again, other than the one clarification on item number 3, and then also just sort of, it sounds like potentially deferring this conversation on the out parcel to our, to a conversation with council, or maybe hopefully staff in the meantime. Other than that, we're in agreement with the conditions as they were presented in the staff report, and request that you recommend approval of our project this afternoon.
Thank you,
So,
Bonnie.
thank you.
Katie, before I close the public hearing, so let's talk about condition number 4. So it's prior to approval of construction drawings. And she's wanting that changed. What is staff comfortable with?
Madam Hearing Examiner, she, I believe, is referring to number 3.
Oh, number 3, okay.
Which in the new report after updates will probably be number 4. And so right now it says prior to building permit submittal. We would just change that from submittal to issuance, so they can submit, but they wouldn't actually be able to gain their building permits to start building until they meet this condition.
Okay, I'm fine with that change. Okay. Okay, and then we're adding school letter. Yes, okay, thank you.
Madam Hearing Examiner, I have, prior to City Council, Pioneer Irrigation District shall provide staff with a letter in response to the original public agency memo regarding this development and the proposed crossing of the Wilson Creek Drain. Is that satisfactory?
Perfect.
Okay. And then I have what will be condition 11, it looks like. At time of final landscape inspection, the applicant shall provide a covered bus stop for the Caldwell School District on the south side of the Wilson Creek Drain to service the bus stop along 41st Avenue and Everett Street.
Perfect, okay, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add, Katie, before we close? Okay,
Madam Hearing Examiner, nothing that staff finds at this time.
okay. I will close the public hearing, and based on staff findings, public testimony, and facts presented, I will recommend approval of SUP 2424-11. And with that, it is 2:51, and I will close our public hearing for the day. Thank you.